All right, so I just want to talk to you a little bit about surface prep on engines, mostly engines, but transmissions as well. Obviously, before you get tearing things apart, you want to try to get as much of the dirt off as you can. Especially, you'll know what I'm talking about if you go to change spark plugs on like a Ford F-150. There's a lot of dirt. Where the spark plug tubes are, the valve covers are shaped so it just catches all the dirt. It sucks. But anytime you're going to get into pulling valve covers off, or in this case, I had to tear it down pretty much to a long block, take the front cover off, valve covers, oil pan, all that stuff. Want to minimize as much dirt getting into the engine as possible. So once you get everything cleaned off, the next step basically when you're reassembling is surface prep. So you're going to have the gasket is only going to cover a certain area, and then you will get corrosion and stuff. You can see a little bit is started to eat away at that aluminum, but you'll have corrosion and such around certain parts of the sealing areas. Now, there's different things that you can use. There's these roll-lock cookies that 3M makes that are specifically for different metals. There's different colors, which are different stiffnesses, and this is my favorite thing to use as far as flat surfaces. This does not remove any of the aluminum, does not dig into it. You can get those brown cookies that are also like a roll-lock style, and you have to watch because they will take off some material, especially aluminum, soft. Once you get things all sort of like cleaned up from that point on, if you have any high spots or anything where there might be any marks, you can go ahead and use emery cloth. That's my next step anyways. And just be gentle with it. You have to have that craftsmanship where you can really gauge what you're doing and be able to do it to closest to perfection as you can. After that, the next step is I would say getting bolt holes and stuff all cleaned up. You want to make sure that there's no liquids in there or leftover silicone. And a lot of these modern engines have a lot of silicone in them. A lot of things get glued together, right? This front cover, siliconed on, oil pan, siliconed on, and some spaces in between the front cover and the heads where the valve covers go on, there's some silicone as well. And it's going to be time consuming, I know, and it's probably tough for anybody that's flat rate that's watching this. You're up against the clock, so you got to get it done. And I get that. I used to be in that situation, but just got to get things as clean as you can. I like to use the little wire bore brushes, which look like I apparently lost that one. They look like this.
It's on the tool over there.
Oh, yes it is. Yeah, so those work great for cleaning out threads, especially if they got silicone in them. That'll get rid of eat the silicone out. And then I always follow it up with a Q-tip. The Q-tip it'll soak up oil and any liquids in there, and also it sort of polishes the threads and leaves a nice finish. So when you go to reinstall your bolts, everything goes together nicely. You can torque it down properly, etc., etc. I've seen where bolt hole was full of coolant one time and somebody cranked it down and it actually fractured the aluminum from trying to tighten it down. So that liquid cannot compress, and that guy was having a bad day. So obviously aluminum's a bit different than steel, and you can see like all this oil that's down here. You gotta make sure all that stuff's off before you hit it with silicone and glue the front cover back on, or whatever you're working on. You gotta make sure that the surface is clean and dry and prepped. So I'm just going over it now. I've got most of all the flat surfaces prepped. I'm just gonna go in now and do all my bolt holes. And you can see most of them are pretty clean. I've hit them with the bore brush now. But there's some spots like in here, there's a, I believe it's like a coolant pipe that goes in there, and there's still some residual silicone that's in there. So I'm gonna get that tidied up. But yeah, just basically trying to minimize dirt getting into different areas and making sure everything's prepped and cleaned. And just pay close attention to, especially aluminum pieces. You never know who's been in there before, and things can get bent or nicked or whatever. Come look at this front cover. As I was cleaning and prepping this, I noticed that somebody had this apart before, but they obviously were prying on something, probably trying to get this front cover off, and they nicked the sealing surface where the valve cover seals onto. And there was also another spot that there was a high spot, so it wasn't nicked like that, but it was bent up. So this thing did have a pretty nasty oil leak before I took it apart, and it was actually one of these seals was compromised, and it was leaking in around this area, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was leaking. So I did take some emery cloth to that, but I'm probably just gonna hit this with some silicone. There's a gasket that goes on it. A more permanent fix may be epoxy. You could do some epoxy in there and then smooth it back out. That would probably be a good permanent fix for that. So, and then of course, all these little holes where sensors and stuff go in that have O-rings, I just get emery cloth in there, just around these edges at the beginning. And that's gonna get all that corrosion off so that you can get some oil on the O-rings. Everything just goes together nicely. You don't wanna be jamming that stuff in there, getting all the corrosion in and around the O-rings. So cleanliness is key. But if you have any more good recommendations on tips and tricks of cleaning things, make sure to throw them down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe.